Okay. It is 4:30. Call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the District of Tofino operates within the territory of the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation. Tla-o-qui-aht. Notice to attendees that the meeting is being video recorded and will be published in the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. And notice to virtual attendees to sign up for public comment and question period using the Q&A function, question and answer function in Zoom. And to register, participants are required to enter their full name, residential address, and the agenda item they wish to speak to. Through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I'll move that pursuant to section 15 of the District of Tofino meeting procedure bylaw number 1229/2016 is amended. The May 23, 2023 regular meeting be held electronically via Zoom and live broadcasted on the District of Tofino's YouTube channel. Seeing no opposition, that motion is carried. Oh, sorry, and that the facility provided for the public to watch and hear the meeting be located at New Supply Hall, 380 Campbell Street in Tofino, BC. That motion's carried. Also through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I move that the May 23, 2023 regular council agenda be adopted. Seeing no objections, that motion's carried. And the consent agenda, also through unanimous consent, if there are no objections, I'll move that items 4.1 to 4.3 of the consent agenda on the regular council meeting held May 23, 2023 be approved and received. Seeing no objections, that motion is carried. Mr. Shortall, do we have any public?
Thanks, Mayor Love. There is no public comments at the moment, but I will do a call for anybody attending via Zoom. If they'd like to leave comments to council, they can do so by using the Q&A function. You need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're speaking to. We'll do a call now. Calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times, and no questions anticipated, Mayor Law.
Okay, Mayor's report. This weekend, I had a resident who was trying to figure out water on his property and was discussing, if there was maybe a possible water break or where the water was coming from, and we. A long-time resident, and we ended up talking about George Hubert. And George would know where the pipe was. George would know where the water's going. And I understand that George Hubert is actually quite ill. And so I'm going to dedicate my mayor's report to George Hubert. He did retire a couple of years ago, but in the middle of the pandemic, so we didn't get a really good chance to send him to let him know how important he was to the district, to our community. So George Hubert, he worked for the district for 37 years, and for the utilities in that times, he was virtually the only utilities employee. He did everything. He knew where every pipe was and the backhoe and every snowstorm. He was in the ditch fixing everything on weekends and at nights. He was a tremendous employee. He also worked for 30 years on the volunteer fire department. George is he's a unique real West Coast guy. And he's a Tofino hero. And I just want to say how much, Tofino and the community, the district appreciates all that he's done for so many years. And I wish he was here to listen. But anyway, I am gonna look to staff to come back, maybe some suggestions, and we can give him a real good honor. I was suggesting the backhoe. We could call him George Hubert backhoe, but anyway, for another time. But I just want to reiterate how special George is, and all the tremendous work he's done for the district, and he's a real hero. That's my mayor's report. Moving on. Delegations. We have no delegations. Correspondence. We have 3 correspondences. We have 9.1, Chris Lowther regarding urban canopy heat mitigation, air quality and trees. Comments from councillors? Yes.
I just wanted to say that I appreciated Ms. Lazarus' letter. Oftentimes we see things talking about the trees in aspects of like, let's just protect these certain trees. And I felt that this was a very constructive letter about here's suggestions of things that we could do going forward instead of just saying, hey, we're going to add trees to as a blanket thing. We could look at replacing any of the trees that we do. I just felt it was really well thought out and had like actionable kind of ideas to work with. I appreciate it.
Super. Any comments from council? Yes. That's sure.
Yeah, to echo Councillor Thomas's statement, again, thanking Ms. Leather for all the correspondence she provides us with on the trees. And I think that she really did identify the fact that they provide a lot to our town and especially so many projects going forward in the instances where we are not able to retain the mature canopy cover replanting at a acceptable rate or a accurate rate. It's going to be very important.
Thank you. Further comments from council? I very much appreciate this letter, Ms. Lowther, and excellent. Okay, 9.2 correspondence from J. Hellifer and K. Kawano regarding short-term rental licensing. Any comments from council? Councillor Anderson.
I just say that I think we should keep this kind of situation in mind as we go forward. When we first looked at creating potential for short-term rentals, and it was with this kind of situation in mind that people might be able to have an opportunity to get a mortgage even and to be able to afford a place by having a short-term rental, and also an opportunity to live in Tofino if a short-term rental is part of the property use. So I think that we should keep that in mind as we move forward, looking at our short-term rental policies.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. Any further comments? Yes.
Just remind me when we discussed short-term rentals and possible controls and downzoning, and I mentioned that we didn't want to prevent young people or newcomers getting into that. So I thought this was poignant at the time, although I do believe we have to do something about short-term rentals, but I do not want to see us preventing young people having the opportunity to participate in one of the better businesses in Tofino.
Excellent.
And I'll just echo with Councillor Master and Councillor Anderson. The intent of what we were doing is not to take away those potential opportunities. Unfortunately, with the extent of the issue that we're having to look at those solutions. Initially, when short-term rentals, the just was to be able to participate in the tourism economy, to be able to afford what we know is an expensive housing market. So we should keep it front and forth in mind when we start looking at this issue in more depth and detail. And I just want, once again, I think the councillors have spoken clearly on this.
Excellent. Right. I look forward to more discussion on short-term rentals. Keeping this in mind. Thank you. 9.3 correspondence from District of Coldstream to Ministry of Housing Homes for People Plan. Comment from councillors on this letter. Councillor Steer, you're all pick your hand up.
Well, no, I have lots to say, but no, we'll leave it at that.
Okay. I think that's an evolving discussion. I know that the province is actually actively meeting with staff, and I'm sure that we're going to hear news fairly soon. Presentation of reports. Let's move right on. We've got 10.1, 151 4th Street, the shed. Ms. Kreba.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, Dennis. Okay, this evening I am presenting an application for a development permit. It's for 151 4th Street. And just because we don't see a lot of these applications come forward, given that there's only 3 development permit areas that are not delegated to staff, I thought I would just start off with a little bit of context for where our statutory authority comes from. So within our OCP, we have development permit areas that have been established in accordance with the LGA. And this particular development permit area was established for the revitalization of an area in which commercial use is permitted. So under that authority, we are also able to establish special conditions and objectives for development in that area. And in particular, for the downtown, we do have forming character considerations. So the rationale for these development permit areas are identified within the OCP, and then we go into further specifics as far as the development guidelines, which are now in our zoning bylaw. So as far as issuing a development permit, we, as I mentioned, can set conditions or specify special requirements for development. And so the development guidelines for the downtown core include, stipulations for landscaping, siting, form, exterior design, and also finish of buildings. So our authority to issue, council's authority and staff's delegated authority to issue can only be done in accordance with these guidelines. So when we do design review, it has to be done as it relates to the zoning bylaw, 2.2. So as I mentioned, this was for 151 4th Street. So we're familiar with this property. It is the Shed Restaurant. So it is within the C2 zoning and specifically within the downtown Campbell Street development permit area. So it's one of 3 downtown DPAs. So their proposal does include a patio roof structure. So I included a before photo so you can see that there's, on umbrellas that are being used currently. And the proponent would like to construct a more permanent structure to provide more outdoor space for during inclement weather, as well as still allow for patio seating in the summer. Some evaluation highlights. So as the report indicated, this did not go through design review panel review, but rather staff did evaluate based on the guidelines that were identified in the PA. So some of those highlights did include that it was, that go beyond the specifics is that it's weather appropriate. The scale protects and frames public views and also blends in with the existing form. There's also cedar and glass materials that are appropriate for a climate and sort of blend into our small town character. And there was no vegetation removal required. So this is a structure that's going to be placed within an existing developed area. There was no requirement to notify the public. So any notification that did go out to public was through the agenda publication. So there was no feedback from the public. And so as staff do recommend that the DP is approved as presented. But I am looking forward to any questions or comments you might have.
Super, thank you, Mr. Huber. So I'm going to open it up to council for questions for clarity, and then we can do comments if appropriate. Go ahead, Councillor Sawyer.
Thank you. Through the chair, I was curious. I noticed the report was very thorough in mentioning the dark skies policy considerations, which was great to see. I was curious that I didn't read anything about noise levels or noise volumes, and specifically music played on speakers outside. And I was wondering if that's just an unprecedented thing to mention in the reports, or if it's something that staff does not deem to be a concern.
Thank you for the questions through the chair. So the noise mitigation is usually included in reports for other development considerations, but given that it's not a consideration of the development permit guideline, the scope of this report really was focused on the guidelines specifically. So any noise concern would be remedied through the bylaw, through the noise bylaw. The public property use bylaw, which includes noise nuisance. But it isn't a consideration of the form and character guideline that is specific to this downtown core. So it is, it is something that staff not consider as part of this application because of the issuance of that permit is limited to the development guidelines.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Anderson. Oh, sorry, I thought you had your hand. I thought you, Councillor Sloan.
I have two questions. The first one is a member of the public said to me that this deck was maybe on district property.
Thank you for the question through the chair. The applicant has submitted a survey. So all the construction and development is on private property. So I don't think there's any grounds for that concern.
And then I have another.
Go ahead.
I was wondering if this would affect the historical parking at all.
Thank you for the question through the chair. It will not affect parking. So the development is going to be limited to the patio that's already in existence. So won't be extending any further into the lot.
I think what I was meaning was, would they lose their historical privilege by altering it?
I believe that the parking would be managed through business licensing bylaw. And so because they're not increasing any seating or altering the use at all, it's essentially just the structure or top of the use. It would not impact the parking. And so unless they were proposing to increase their seats, then parking would be a concern. But that again would be managed through business licensing.
The questions from council? I did have one question. I know the signage, according to the report, looks about the same as what's there now, but I did notice the lights are facing up. And I thought, is this the appropriate time to say, hey, dark sky policy, have a look at that, at the lighting, to make sure the lighting, any existing lighting or new lighting actually is facing down. Yeah.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so I feel like through the development permit, they haven't necessarily indicated any exterior lighting that's, are you referring to the signage lighting that's?
Well, in the picture, they've got the sign that's already there.
Right.
But it does have lights pointing up. And I thought since it was, in process, it would be a good time to say.
Yes, and so that's right. So through the actual permit itself, there was mitigation for lighting. And so I feel like, I've integrated the dark sky policy mention as well as sort of expanding on that to be more specific to sort of general sort of national practice for lighting. But I will definitely inquire as to whether or not there's additional lighting being proposed. It wasn't included in the application, but just to ensure that they are adhering to the dark sky policy. And this again is something that could be managed through the bylaw as well, if need be, if it's causing major concerns.
Thank you. Let's move on to do we have any comments? Is anybody opposed to this application? That we can maybe just forego the comments then? Okay, would somebody like to read the motion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Read that.
Go ahead, Councillor.
I will move the recommendation that development permit number 0523 for South Swell Holdings Limited Incorporated, number BC 0907050 for the construction of patio cover on lot 6, block 13, district lot 114, Blackwood District Plan 165, EID 007 153 at 151 4th Street, attached as Appendix 1 to the report titled GP 151 4th Street Shed Restaurant, dated May 23rd, 2023, be issued.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Thank you. Moving on to 10.2, we have a contract award for 2023 to 2025 Tofino free shuttle service. Mr. Staley.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Today I will be going through a contract award for the 2023 to 2025 Tofino free shuttle service. The shuttle has been in service operating in its free format since 2014. It is a reliable method for visitors and residents. It aims to alleviate the stress of navigating the busy roads in town when peak tourism season is on and finding parking as well. The shuttle service helps to decrease the numbers of cars on the road, consequently lowering greenhouse gas emissions. And it is a valuable alternative and mode of transportation from downtown Tofino. The route runs between Cox Bay and Cox Bay Visitor Center and the downtown Tofino with 22 stops. That's in total 22 for that, not just into town, but out of town as well. Staff has been working with Tla-o-qui-aht First Nations and Parks Canada to pilot an extension service that will head out to Long Beach with a stop in Tla-o-qui-aht and Essaouista. The 2023 service will run from June 24th to September 4th, 2023, with similar dates planned for 2024 and 25. So here's a picture of the extension that will be running through Tla-o-qui-aht and Essaouista. The stop will be just above where it says Alberni Tla-o-qui-aht there. That is where the stop in Tla-o-qui-aht will be. And the stop in Essaouista will be that little blue line that creeps in on the right corner there. And the Long Beach stop will be in the Long Beach parking lot. So a notice of intent was issued on January 27th, 2023 and closed on February 10th, 2023. The District of Tofino outlined the organization's intent to contract services directly from Tofino bus lines for all 3 years of the service. The cost of the shuttle service is $215,820, with other expenses related to the service brings the total to $250,000. And the 2023 service is funded by $245,000 worth of RMI and a $5,000 contribution from Tourism Tofino. The cost of the project for the 2023 season is within the total approved budget for the project, which is $250,000. Sorry, it's covered up at the bottom there. So the recommendation, staff recommends that the Tofino free shuttle service contract be awarded to Tofino bus lines for seasonal service in 2023, 24, and 25.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Staley.
Yeah.
Do we have a question for clarity from Mr. Staley?
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited about the extension heading out to Long Beach and Tla-o-qui-aht and Essaouista. I got a quick question in terms, and this has probably been answered before. Has there been a conversation around an extension of the time frame? So starting mid-June-ish, extending it to later on into September. I know there's a cost associated with that and the budgeting constraint. Has that conversation come up? I knew I was looking here, but
The chair.
Go ahead.
If I may.
Ms. Vermont.
Through the chair, yes, that conversation has come up and we have tried to extend the service a number of times. We have run into some challenges with driver availability. Often it is the school bus drivers that are available through the summer to take on this driving for this service. So that has been a challenge. And so even though we have attempted to start in mid-June and go to early September, mid-September, we've often run into challenges where we haven't been able to fulfill that service. And certainly there is a cost. It's a significant cost, and it's per day of the service. So we would have to factor that into the budget if we wanted to try that again. But yes.
that's all.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Staley? Seeing none, I think we'll forego any further comments except to say that this is excellent service and we very much appreciate it. And it's wonderful that it is RMI funded. So thank you very much. All who worked on this. Councillor Deere, go ahead.
The recommendation that Tofino bus lines be awarded the contract for Tofino's free shuttle service from June 24, 2023 to September 4, 2023 with reoccurring service terms of the same or similar duration in 2024 and 2025. And that the 2023 service be funded by $245,000 from the RMI funding and a $5,000 contribution from Tourism Tofino.
Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Any other further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion carried. Thank you for that. Water and sewer utility bylaw amendments. We have no PowerPoint from Ms. Bodner, but do we have comments, or you're just going to be up here for questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I have no formal presentation, but I just wanted to explain the reason for the amendment is council adopted on March 22nd of 2023, the water and the utility rates bylaws, amended bylaws. And unfortunately, there was an error in both Schedule A's, allowing or not allowing the proposed rate increases to occur. Therefore, our staff are bringing back these bylaws, which will see a 4% increase on July 1st of 2023 and a 4% increase on January 1st of 2024. These rate changes have been reflected in the 2023 to 2027 financial plan bylaw recently adopted by council.
Questions from Ms. Bodner? Councillor Fear.
Great, thank you. I have a couple of questions. One, well, first, I believe there is a rate review coming up in 2024, and we'll be looking at various levels of revenue requirements and et cetera, et cetera. I did have a question around for 2022, and I think I may have preempted this question already. I'm curious as to the what the operating, if there was an operating surplus for 2022, and if you have the figures available, what is the reserves in the water and sewer reserve funds?
Thank you for the question. Through the chair, I'm referring to the recently received 2022 audited financial statements, and on Schedule 2 of that document, there was a summary of the programs. So for the water utility, ended 2022 within a deficit of $86,267. The sanitary sewer, on the other hand, ended with a surplus of $13,373,266. Now that's a bit. I just want to explain that a little bit more. And the wastewater utility grant is actually flowing through. The revenues are flowing through that particular program. So if I take that away, if I take the $13 million of revenue away, because the costs are actually sitting in the capital side of the house. So if I take those away, it ends in a surplus of $78,400. $78,400. And the reserves, this is on Schedule 1 of the same audited financial statements. So the water capital ended in a reserve balance of $3.4 million nearly, and sanitary sewer $1.3 million.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, through the mayor. So what the water utility deficit that we had that would have been made up through the reserves, through the surplus in the.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So I guess my question comes, if we have a reserve, what appears to be a substantial reserve in water, and we're now looking at an increase. We had an increase of 13% and further 4% in 2022, a 4% for this year, and then a further 4% for 2024. I'm just wondering if when in that rate review, will we be looking at if we're meeting our operational requirements and we have these reserves, of which I would assume, or because we have more money, that we collect more money than is needed to run the service. as part of that reserve, well, we've been looking closely at what those requirements are and then being able to adjust. That was my concern right at the beginning of all this, that, we're going to initiate that 4% in perpetuity without really, I just wasn't fully comfortable because I didn't know what our operational costs were. And yet we're going to be applying a rate increase without, I understand inflation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's my main concern, is that moving forward, and I was reluctant to approve for 2024 in January until we had a much more comprehensive understanding of how much this is costing us to run, and then we'll collect the appropriate revenues for that. So I guess the question revolves around the extent of that review in 2024, which seems a little late for me, but.
Thank you for the question. Yes, that review will make sure that the rate fully collects the full amount of cost to run both utilities, as well as we will likely include a component for renewal, asset renewal. Should be part of that discussion as well, to make sure that those assets continue to function appropriately down the road or as needed. So we will be looking at that asset renewal plan throughout 23-24. So we'll do that in conjunction with the rate reviews.
Thank you.
Be a follow-up question. Got you in the hot seat. We've got a lot of water main breaks, water line breaks, and those are, those aren't really budgeted for. But do those repairs come out of the reserve fund that we have there, or do they come out of capital infrastructure?
They'll come out of we do budget for some yes, we budget for the repair, and any overage of that budget we will look at for contingency to supply any further, and exceeding that we would obviously look in other places. But again, I think we're going to look at that whole review during our asset management review.
Great, thank you.
Just to add that we also take from reserves when we replace water lines in association with other projects too. Reserves are always used partly in every budget year. It's part of it.
If I could maybe expand on Councillor Anderson's comment, we would use reserves to when we're exceeding or extending useful life of that particular asset or enhancing the useful life. We will look to reserves to fund that capital cost.
Thank you very much. Further, seeing no further questions or comments from council, would somebody like to read this recommendation?
Since I asked so many questions, I'll read that the District of Tofino Water Utility Amended Bylaw number 1213-05 2023 be introduced and read a first, second, and third time.
Second.
Second by Councilor McMaster. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? None opposed, motion is carried.
And that the District of Tofino Sewer Utility Amendment Bylaw number 124-03 2023 be introduced and read first, second, and third time.
Second.
Second by Councilor McMaster. Any further comments? All in favor? None opposed, motion is carried. Okay, we'll move on to item 10.4, downtown day parking program. Report on Mr. Rogers.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This presentation is going to feel similar. This is basically a rehash of the presentation that I presented at the open house we had late last week. So why are we going through the downtown pay parking process? Well, we want to ensure that there is an availability of parking spaces in the downtown or at all times. We want to encourage a mode shift for a variety of reasons. And we'd like to develop an additional revenue stream to help fund district infrastructure and projects. We introduced this program widely to the community on April 4th. We've gone through a fairly extensive and intensive consultation engagement process. We've had 3 community meetings, many questions, significant amount of attendees. Tla-o-qui-aht has been busier than it's ever been before, with about 1,500 unique visitors. Our social media has had a wide reach, and about 3,500 people have engaged with us through that process. And again, I think we're all familiar with this, but the free resident pass has been the most popular sentiment raised through that process. Following community feedback, staff presented council with options at May 15th Cal meeting, and then introduced option 1, as it was called then, at the open house. At the open house, this last one was less well attended than some of the previous ones as we sort of worked through the process. I think the largest concern that came out of that meeting was from the tour operator contingent, who are interested in a longer time limit for parking in the downtown core to help support their businesses. We've left because of the timing. This report has the length of time of 5-hour or 4-hour maximum in the time spots, and so that's going to stay for now as we work through the process. This actually becomes an administrative issue, and staff can address that through the rollout of the program. As I said, when we begin, it's going to be fairly gentle, and so we'll be able to get some feedback and maybe adjust the program if needed. So the preferred option for those of you that are here or listening, and for council again, it includes free parking for all beach permit holders. Pay parking will be in effect from hopefully June 16th this year through October 15th from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. and from May 1st to October 15th in the years to come. We'll be actively enforcing our timed parking zones to ensure that they're turning over. We will have a maximum of 4 hours parking in all spaces that are designated to be paid parking, other than our sort of 15-minute and a very long-term parking. That will mean that if you are a beach pass holder, you'll have to make sure that your car is not parked in any one location for more than 4 hours. Highway 4, Campbell and First Street, so the lower part of First Street, changes from a 2-hour maximum, which has been for about 10 years, to a 1-hour maximum time limit. There'll be 50-minute spaces adjacent the post office, the bank, the municipal hall, Gag Grocery, and the Tla slot adjacent liquor store. We're proposing a flat rate of $2 per hour for regular vehicles and a flat rate of $4 an hour for recreational vehicles. This option also combines our 2 systems, something we heard we had a lot of feedback from the community as well. It includes the existing offshore program, largely unchanged with the exception of a few extra spaces and some specific signage for the Tla-o-qui-aht First Nation. It also includes a downtown resident program, so folks who in the downtown core and have been parking on some of our roads for many decades won't have to move their cars during those times of days if they're in the block that they live in. Free parking is available everywhere throughout town if you're not a beach pass holder, so along Campbell and First Street, the 1-hour parking, the parent parking by the school if you're picking up your children or going to Strong Start, the 50-minute parking, and then the long duration parking at Arnett. This is a map. It's kind of small. I'm happy to go back and discuss it, but it just basically lays out what I just said with my words. In response to community feedback, we think we've addressed most, if not all, community concerns. So we've addressed the offshore parking discussion, school parking, revenue allocation, which will be a subject of an upcoming committee of the whole meeting. We've talked about alternative transportations. We've combined the 2 systems into one system. We've addressed resident parking through the beach pass and as well as the resident pass systems. So next steps, if council opts to move forward today with first, second, and third reading and the policy amendments, we would look to adopt the bylaw on the June 13th meeting. That would mean we could tentatively implement Friday, June 16th. That would include all the changes to the beach program, including Howard Drive. We're well underway with installing meters and signage. The program can be adjusted, as I said, especially in the beginning and throughout the summer. The program will be reviewed at the end of the parking season, sometime in late fall, early winter. You can still email comments to me at parking@tofino.ca. We're gonna leave Talk Tofino open all summer to try to generate some more feedback about how the program's working for community members as well as visitors, and use that feedback into our review in the fall. Thank you for listening to me today. I'm happy to take any questions we may have on parking.
Super. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. That's a question for county council. Yes, go ahead.
On the May 15th committee of the whole meeting, on appendix 2, you had historical parking on Second Street, and then today it's gone.
That would be an error on my part. I have to look back at the map. I can't see the yellow there. My eyes aren't good enough. Can you tell me if that's yellow on Second Street or not?
There's one section. I see both on mine.
Councillor Coleman, which area are you referring to?
I look on
The one on Second Street was older. I don't know if we've actually had historical parking on Second. Third, that's the way of.
it's on the district website on the map there. It's historical, and then I found it again in that meeting.
The ones that I'm familiar with.
It's not ringing a bell here to me.
No, the ones I'm familiar with are the ones that used to be Coffee Pod, which is now Shed.
Yeah.
Whale Center. Used to be in front of Duffin Cove and Cable Cove, but those have redeveloped in the time, so we've removed those. The new one for this program is by the hospital at Neil Street. In reviewing the whole process, I looked at Neil Street, and Neil Street looks like the parking is shared, and so we added historical parking to the hospital so that we don't have to worry about people having to pay for parking there.
Is that
Where did you think it was?
I looked it up on appendix.
Yeah, May 15th, it says existing 2017, the stretch, yeah, between Campbell and Neil.
The schooner?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, again, 2017, I wasn't part of that. I don't remember. The schooner was thought to be historical parking, but it's actually all on the District of Tofino property by survey. So that's probably why it was.
Okay. So that will not be historical parking.
No, paid parking.
Super. Any, is that sufficient or you follow up question?
Yeah, I have a different question.
Go ahead, go follow up question, then we'll move to.
So I'd like to know, the commercial vehicles, I had a question today asked of me, would it be possible for commercial vehicles to get a permit for downtown added to their business license in the future?
Potentially, yes, I'd have to talk to the protective services department and see how that might interact. But yeah, it definitely could be an option. We did include a downtown commercial vehicle permit, so we do have that. Well, how that relates to the business licensing program, I'm not sure yet, but definitely something we can look into.
Okay. Councillor McMaster, then Councillor Steer.
Just one point, earlier in the meeting, we talked about Tofino bus going to September 4th. And so was there any thought of making this program in alignment with the bus program? Because we're talking about paid parking through till October 15th, which kind of goes against the grain if we're trying to encourage people to use a bus, run of a bus from September 4th to 15th.
Through the chair to Councillor McMaster, we've had conversations about it in staff, but we actually developed them separately. The idea, I think, was to get the paid parking program in place and generating revenues that we could come back to council next year and say, hey, this is the program that we have. We think that some of the revenue may be, suited to helping us expand our bus program rather than vice versa. So setting the paid parking first and understanding that's our busy months and then trying to build out our bus program as we go forward. This is how we approached it for good or for bad.
That's all I have.
Councillor Steer.
Yeah, well, like, it was touched on by Councilor McMaster, but just a quick question, throughout this, it was the beach pay parking, the increased cost from, the first 2 hours was $3, and then the subsequent will remain, like the subsequent hours will remain $1.50.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, it was a bit confusing. So we basically discounted the first 2 hours of beach parking for the last 2 years at $1.50 per hour for the first 2 hours. And so we just changed it to match up with the remaining hours at $3 per hour. It's significant. It's a significant difference to the projected budget from doing that based on the fact that many people are only there for 2 hours. And so we may see a significant increase in our revenues because of that.
Thanks.
Councillor.
Moderate through the chair. Thank you for the reports and all the information, and I really do appreciate so many of our questions and concerns and feedback being addressed pretty well. I just had a question for clarification that I may have missed in one of the many appendixes, but I am just looking for a bit of clarity. The ACRD residents, non-Tofino residents are still paying $60 a year for beach pass.
Yes,
And that beach pass will allow them to park downtown?
correct.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to check on that. And is it still limited to 2 free beach passes per household?
My understanding, the way that's been run from Robbins is that it's 3 per person.
Okay,
So not,
okay,
it's something that we'll be addressing next year. I mean, I don't think anybody has 3 vehicles that they're constantly swapping out. But I think as the program matures and we start truly combine the contracts together, we'll be taking a look at what's reasonable and how easy it is to get information. So yeah, so it's 3 per person basically right now.
okay.
Yeah.
That's more than 2 per household.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And I also shared the similar concern of when we're able to mirroring our Tofino shuttle with pay parking timeframe. Just to allow people to participate in a different mode of transportation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Questions further questions? I actually just have a question, and it is on the, I believe it's the fees and charges amendment bylaw. Proposed. There was a note on Tofino residential property owner. But I didn't see there wasn't a reference to that in the fees and charges. Was there it's in here as a note, but it's not actually in the fees and charges anywhere. So the Tofino residential property owner means a person who owns a residential property within the district of Tofino. Says that, but it should say who does not meet the requirements of Tofino resident. Is there a purpose for that?
I think you've caught me.
I just caught you completely off.
Yeah, I'd have to. My apologies. I have to sit down and look at the bylaw, the specific part of that bylaw. The intent was for most of the main changes to be in the traffic and parking bylaw, and then the fees are reflected in there, and so. It's kind of, I believe it's a belt and suspenders type of action that if we have it in one, I think the other one's more of a backup than not. I'm not sure why we have it in 2 right now.
Okay.
I'm just covering my bases. So I can look at that.
That's okay. I mean, if it comes out later on that we need that definition. That's what I was wondering. It's there as a definition, but I don't see it referenced anywhere else. And I was just wondering if there was a reason for that, but it's a little bit of a technical question. Sorry for pulling that one on you.
Thank you, Mayor.
We'll let it go. Although I should be changed to who instead of that.
Yes.
Okay, any further questions, comments from council? Right, seeing none, who would like to read this motion? All right, from the chair. Okay, that's my punishment. That's my punishment for asking questions. Okay, I'll move from the chair that staff be authorized to amend the District of Tofino parking policy in support of implementation of downtown free parking programs as follows. Under the on-street parking section, delete policy 1.1 parking shall be without charge under the Lakewood Sound Access section. Amend policy 5.3 from parking spaces adjacent commercial land use shall be designated as high turnover parking areas from June through September. To parking spaces adjacent commercial land use shall be designated as high turnover parking areas from May 1st through October 15th. Under the map section, delete the existing map and replace with the map attached as Appendix 5 to the Downtown Pay Parking Program report dated May 23rd, 2023. Seconder. Sloman, Councillor Sloman, second. All in favor for the comments before I call the question? Seeing no comments, all in favor? Opposed? Councillor McMaster is opposed. Also from the chair, I recommend that District of Tofino Traffic and Parking Regulation Amendment Bylaw number 1091.08 2023 attached as Appendix 2 to the Downtown Pay Parking Program report dated May 23, 2023 be introduced and read first, second, and third time. Any further consent? Seconded by Councillor Steer. Comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor McMaster is opposed. Through the chair, I'll recommend that the District of Tofino fees and charges amendment bylaw number 1271.08 2023 attached as Appendix 3 to the Downtown Pay Parking Program report dated May 23, 2023 be introduced and read at first, second, and third time. Seconded by Councillor Steer. Any further comments? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Councillors opposed. Those motions carried. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Motions carried. All those motions are carried. That's it. Thank you. Excellent. Nothing under bylaws. Do we have anything under business initiated by council members? Yes, Councillor Bowen.
I went to the Tourism Tofino board meeting today and we are going to be rewarding the scholarships. And unfortunately, nobody met our criteria, so we're changing them a little bit on recommendation from SD 70. So there's going to be one $10,000 one and two $5,000 ones. And I'm not going to say too much more because I don't want to give away who's getting it.
Yeah.
And then for the financials from Tourism Tofino, the retail is up slightly. Tourism is down the last month in Tofino, even from 2019, which we've been kind of sitting a little bit above. So I think it's a bit slower in town. And they are going to be, I'm sorry, my notes are kind of, because it was just this morning. I think that's about it. Oh, we had our membership survey results, and it was that was kind of an interesting thing we did. All us board members had to phone all the members and ask them how the members' knowledge on the MRDT and how it's used within the district and Tourism Tofino. So that was an interesting survey we did. And then they're looking at resort occupancy forecasting, which I think could be helpful for us and our water usage. And they're looking at maybe moving to Forward Star, which is an occupancy projection data collection system. And that's about it.
Super. I got a question for you. When you say tourism is down, is that occupancy or numbers?
Occupancy.
So
we don't have a lot of, they're trying to gather more on like restaurants and that. We don't have a lot of data reporting on that. So we just have the resorts.
But just to clarify, because there's a significant increase in number of units available since 2019. So the occupancy can be still down.
They're looking at getting, I believe if they become part of this Forward Star or the Airbnb, they'll maybe have, if I understood it correctly, they'll be able to get different reports, which could be maybe better.
Mm-hmm. Numbers as opposed to occupancy.
Yeah.
Great. Occupancy. Super. Thank you. Any further input from council? Seeing none. Thank you for that. All right. No unfinished business. Mr. Shortall, do we have anybody signed up for question period?
Currently, there's nobody signed up for a question period, but I would call to anyone attending via Zoom. If they'd like to ask a question, they can raise their hand using the question and answer function. You'll need to state your name, your address, and the agenda item you're speaking to. So I'll call 3 times, calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times, and no questions at this period, Mayor Law.
Super, thank you, Mr. Shortall. Then I will move adjournment. Seconded by Councillor Thomas. Super. All in favor? Motion is carried. We're adjourned. Thank you.